Okay, this video here is to show you how to create an item bank assessment in Illuminate. So again, we're going to make sure we go to emuhsd.illuminate and then edforeducation.com and sign in with Google, the red button there. So we use our district Gmail account. And if it's the first time logging in, it's going to make you put your credentials. After that, more than likely, it'll just auto log you in. My account's a little different, so I have to tell it where I'm going. But yours should probably take you into the dashboard like this, just like this. And again, I've got to change something on my control panel here. You probably don't. And as always, help, lessons, and videos is in here as well. Okay, it did not change. Okay, so once you're on your teacher account, you're going to go over to assessments, and just like usual, we're going to create a new assessment. You can also create new item bank assessment, either way, because it's going to give you the option under either one. If you go in here, you go here, or you can just jump straight there. Now it's going to ask you which mode you want to do. Standard mode, you're going to be narrowing, setting some parameters, and then as you narrow it, it'll bring you some question options that you can choose. Quick mode, you get to pick a standard, and it will just give you questions related to that standard and create the test for you really quick. Item, this is where you author the question. You make it up. It's your question, and you can decide whether you want to share it with others and contribute it to the item bank or keep it private. And the items are things like multiple choice, true and false, just kind of your basic standard question types. Or you could do a passage one. That is, again, one that you are authoring. You're making that one up yourself. But that one would be where there's a passage or excerpt or something the students have to read in order to answer some questions about it afterwards. So those are the choices you have. So we're just going to do standard mode for this time around, so you can kind of see what that looks like. I'm going to call this literary analysis. You could do a description, you could set more information, and again, this kind of stuff just helps you find it later on. Say it's for 9th grade. It just, or if you're sharing with other people, it's going to help them find it easier the more information you put in it. Okay, so for this, in order to start searching for questions to use, I need to choose the standards that I want the questions to be about. So actually, I think California is in here, isn't it? Yeah. So if I go to the ones down here, and then I'm doing English, and I said it was going to be 9th grade. So it's going to pull these up for me, and I can, again, I see there's 507 items here, and I can kind of go through and narrow them down based on the strands in here to kind of find the questions I want to use. And as I go down the arrows, it gives me more in-depth information and again tells me how many items or how many questions I could find based on these types of standards. Okay, so let's just say I want to use this one and this one. So I'm going to tell it those are the two standards I want to assess. And I know that I'm going to have, about 120 items to sort through. So I say continue. Now this is your search filters, and again, everything that has a question mark, you can mouse over it and it gives you more data. But what I'm going to tell you is you're going to want to click on each one of these things to kind of narrow the parameters a little bit. So right now, when you first go in here, I'm not sure what's going to be checked or not. There really probably is nothing in here yet, not very much, until people start creating questions and adding to it. So you're going to want to choose some of these item banks that are connected. And you can just select them all if you want. It's going to give you more options to choose from, more places where it's pulling results from, and it loads the results down in here. Then the other thing you can do is you can choose what type of item you want. This is going to narrow the results. So if you want it to be just a regular multiple choice, if you want it to be a non-traditional, a selectable text, an evidence-based. Now some of these are can only be given online. So if you choose some of these options, then you wouldn't be able to print an answer sheet and have the student take the test on paper in class. It would have to be on the computer or on the Chromebook or something like that. So just keep that in mind when you're deciding which types of questions to select for that, okay? But let's just choose a few of these. Okay, and there can even be drawing responses. Might be helpful for math and other things like that. Okay. Okay, so then as I update the filters, like I said, oops, it'll change results and say, okay, you know, I want stuff without passages right now because I don't want to look through things with long passages at this point. And it kind of narrows it down. At this point, it narrows it down to 1. So you got to be careful about what you narrow to, because sometimes it's better to just leave things open so that you have more choices to choose from. Okay. So here we go. We've got 40 different questions we can choose from. And again, if I went back and I added more standards, it would give me even more to choose from. But for the moment, let's just say I want to pick some of these. Say I like these questions. So what I do is I come to the bottom and I just tell it to add that question for me. And add this one for me. And I'm not really checking these closely, I'm just adding. Okay, and as I start building it, it tells me, it gives me different little data over here about the questions I'm adding so that I can see I have 2 with passages. I have 3 items total in there. So I can just keep building my test. Now remember, on these you don't have to pick an amount of questions, so I can add or put as little as I want. I'm just going to go with 5. I'm happy with 5 for now. And again, all of these are going to relate to these standards. I have 2 that relate to this standard and 3 that relate to the other standard. Okay, so I'm going to continue. It's going to let me review them. I can shuffle them. I can change the order, anything like that that I want to do to it, just to make sure I'm happy and that I like it. Okay. Now, when it has these types of questions, or this type of symbol on it, I believe that that means that it needs to be given on the computer only. So, like I said, you're going to want to pay attention and keep that in mind when you're choosing questions, because some can only be given online. Okay. All right, so I'm going to continue. And again, I can drag and drop and move the order and change things around here if I want to. And again, we're probably not going to do the print option with this one because some of the questions can only be administered online. But if you had them all where it was just where they were all able to be given on a paper test, then you could print it if you wanted to do that. Okay. Now, here it has this whole thing about disabled. This just has to do with being able to analyze the data afterwards based on certain criteria here. So personally, I'd rather see more data than less data because you don't have to look at it. You could choose to not run a report based on that, but I'm going to enable all of them just in case I do decide, hey, I want to see how they did on the depth of knowledge skills, or hey, I want to see how they did in regards to Bloom's taxonomy. So I enable all of them just to be able to look at more data if I choose in the future that I want to look at more data. And then once you're done with that, you publish your test. Yay, it's been done. You can add material to it just like you did on the manual test, where you can add a previous test you have that's related to this. You can add other instructions or anything else that you want to add to it, and that's just like PDF or document type. Now, once I'm done with that, I do want to go back to assessments, because when I came to the item bank, it took me to a totally different section than my Illuminate. And actually, I want to return to Illuminate. That's where I want to go. So when I return to Illuminate, that gets me back to my account, and it automatically brings me to the part where I can see my test, and it's telling me this was an item bank test that I created. And then here it is right now. So directly from here, after I've given the test, if I did do a paper one and had answer sheets, I can scan the answer sheets here. I can also click on the test to do any of these types of things. I can print answer sheets if I need to, if it was one that can be given in class, paper and pen. Or I can set to administer it online. I would set up a window of time where it can be taken, and there might be a password the students are putting in and things like that. And I would administer it online, and I could do it from this section of my Illuminate account. So that's the basics for creating an item bank assessment. Again, there are so many different things you can do and so many ways you can set it up, but those are kind of the basics and the quick nitty-gritty for you. Again, I'm always here to help. If you need help, set up a time and we can go through everything one-on-one.